Alesia, I want to start with you. I think that most people in the room will be familiar with Coinbase, but for those who aren't, give us like 1 minute to help ground us in the conversation. What is Coinbase?
Perfect. Coinbase was founded in 2012 to be the easiest and most trusted place where you can buy, trade, and store digital assets. We have over 30 million accounts that we steward assets for on behalf of both retail, institutions, business, and a broad variety of customers. And we operate in over 100 countries globally. Okay, so buy, trade, and store, my mind goes to the word brokerage. And is that the right word or not? We think of ourselves in the traditional vernacular as both an exchange, a brokerage, as well as a custodian. So recently, in the last year, we launched a qualified custodian. We custody assets now on behalf of institutions, over 2 billion of assets in private addresses. And I think, you know, if there's two themes of our event so far, one is Facebook's Libra announcement, which you're intimately involved in, and we're going to get to that. And the other is this sort of very generic expression, use cases. My assumption, and when you talk about 30 million accounts, since there aren't many use cases for cryptocurrencies right now, these people are speculators. Yes. Will you address that? Absolutely, and as we just talked about, given the primary products that we're operating in today are investment type products, over 90, 95, 99, I mean, you can argue about the number of the use cases of digital assets as speculative trading today. And that is where we see all interest and activity for most of the markets. However, in the last year, and I would say over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen tremendous development of the utility cases in digital assets. And there's a lot of promising new companies that are bringing innovative ideas and products to the table. These are all nascent stage. We are so early in the adoption of these utility phase of cryptocurrency, but I think there's a lot of interest and excitement there. Good. I like the way you don't take speculation as an accusation. It's a fact, but it sort of shows what the opportunity is. Is that fair? That's right. And I think it's getting people educated on the various projects that are out there, making sure we have broad consumer and business understanding of the different digital asset projects that people have brought to the market, and giving them an opportunity to interact with these. Good. Patrick, first of all, it's a privilege to have you here as someone who was around for what Brad Garlinghouse just called Web 1.0. You have been around since Web 1.0 and before that, yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah, well, you know, that's an accomplishment all by itself. I want to read a line from your bio that you are a leading force in advancing blockchain technology to democratize capital, eliminate middlemen, and rehumanize commerce. I particularly like the rehumanizing commerce part. Tell everybody briefly, as Alesia did briefly to set things up, your journey from being a pioneer in e-commerce to a pioneer in blockchain technologies.
Well, it's very kind and it's an honor to be here, Adam. Thank you, with Fortune. We were back in 2013, the largest company accepting Bitcoin was an $800,000 a year diner in Australia. And oddly enough, it was a conversation with a journal. I was getting into Bitcoin, and a journalist asked me around December 19th, hey, you think I'm going to take Bitcoin in the new year? And I said, yeah, probably by the end of the new year. And she put that in an article. And what was interesting was it got reproduced all over the world. I got all these Google alerts in Swahili, in Thai, and Korean. And I realized, wait, there really is this global subculture out there waiting for it. 15 days later with Coinbase, or January 9th, we went live. We took some Coinbase folks and some Overstock folks and put them in a room for 15 days, slid pizzas under the door, and we got live January 9th. And it really was not, so anyway, that was the journey into it. But my real, it's not Bitcoin, it's the blockchain itself. And it was my ambition that our company would develop a lot of expertise with blockchain so that we could then take it and do other projects. So that was my journey.
And I'm going to come to your other projects, but what's fascinating about your anecdote, did you already consider yourself an expert on these topics, or was this more of an exploratory thing that happened in that interview, and then you said, aha, I better get going?
I had, for about 3 months, been reading about Bitcoin. Oddly enough, I used to study the mathematics under cryptography. So when Bitcoin came along, I tuned in on it, but just from that sort of mathematical interest. And it was only in the fall of 2013 that I started really seriously considering it from a business point of view.
Fascinating. So Alesia, you come from a traditional corporate finance background, and so you're now at this company that is on the cutting edge of whatever happens next. And so share with everybody two things, if you would. One is what you've had to do as Chief Financial Officer of Coinbase to get Coinbase's finances where they need to be, and then how that translates to the greater market. In other words, if this market is moving where we think it might, every company will need to do what Coinbase is doing.
It's true. So there's many commonalities between Coinbase and any other company I've worked for. So I first want to dispel the belief that this is so unique and different that we need to build different frameworks to think about accounting, tax, et cetera. That being said, there is ambiguity underneath accounting policy, underneath tax code that need to be resolved, very much like the regulatory clarity that we're looking for that Brad spoke to you about in the prior panel. And so I do think that one of Coinbase's roles is to advocate and work with our industry partners to get to broad-based adopted policies and interpretations under existing code, both in the US and then globally. So leaving that aside, the challenges that we face with our clients. So if I look at our hedge fund clients who want to custody assets with us or trade with us, some of their unique challenges are, how do you reconcile assets to the blockchain? How do I value these assets? How do I ensure the basic frameworks that we then hold with all of our other financial assets that are widely traded in the traditional markets? And those I think we've made great strides on over the past year. I think that there's many of the big four, as well as the next tier accounting firms who have practices and procedures that they can audit these assets. I think firms are now getting unqualified opinions. And so I think that is moving very quickly, and I feel very good about that. On the moving to traditional finance side, though, what I think is most interesting about the potential, not the today reality where most of our trades are speculative, which I think we're addressing with these kind of bricks and mortar tackling things around policies and procedures, is the opportunity to change our transaction flow. And that's something that, as Patrick alluded to, we did partner early through our Coinbase Commerce product with Overstock. And that's the ability
and we're a great partner for us.
You are a great partner for us, too.
They were a great partner for us. Coinbase is a great company.
And this allows companies to be able to accept digital assets, and Coinbase can provide services to you to provide some of these services to you around how do you confirm the transaction, how could we provide reconciliation services, et cetera. But I think these accepting of transactions of different types for all traditional corporate finance functions and all accounts receivable and accounts payable functions is something that we're really excited about helping move forward as an industry.
As a chief financial officer, are these ambiguities stressful?
You know, yes and no. I think that like anything else, you have to take a position and take your own well-researched, well-defined policy and move forward. We can't wait for things to be defined in order to move our business forward. So we take an educated view, we work with our trusted advisors, and I think that we have good reasoned positions at this time.
Great. Patrick, Bitcoin ended up being a tiny portion of Overstock.com's transaction business, but it led you to become an investor yourself, and particularly to found a company called T0.
T0.
Tell everybody about it.
T0, whose CEO, Sam Norsalihi, is right here, is, I think the killer app of this is going to be security tokens, is my view. And 4 or 5 years ago, I made the decision to take this stuff and do a regulated version of it. I'm just kind of curious. Anyone here old enough to remember a little contretemps I got in with Wall Street 15 years ago? Raise your hand. Some of you remember that. Okay. That at its core was all about settlement. It freaked me out when I understood the settlement system. I'm autistic and I'm Asperger's, and Asperger's kids can't play kickball with other kids because the ball hits the line. And it's like, wait, how can you play on? It hit the line. If you ever find out how the settlement system actually works in America, it is so much slop, you would freak out like I did in 2005. So to me, and the last guest you had made a great point. There's so much capital underneath the settlement system buffering different points that we can liberate. So to me, the killer app is security tokens, and we built a system, spent a fortune, spent 200 million, 150 million of shareholder money, but taking every step through. Because of that fight 15 years ago, I knew that I had to be like Caesar's wife, above reproach, that I had to go right down the middle of the fairway up to the front steps of the SEC. And that is how we have done it, or think we've done it. And I mentioned to you backstage that I stick with the commitments I made in my last earnings call that you will see some very interesting things announced this quarter.
Okay, some very interesting things announced this quarter around security tokens. And the quarter has how many days left in it? 9 days. What I don't understand is, with this fantastic audience and the live stream around the world, why don't you just make those announcements right now? Look at this, you even have enthusiasm for it here.
Well, it's more, and I just want to point out, there's no Reg FD issues. All I'm doing is reaffirming predictions I made in my earnings call, and I need to wait till next week. There's things coming out.
In order to avoid having Reg FD issues.
Yes, legal issues, and law firms ripping my head off.
Okay, Alesia, we had Katie Hahn on last night. She's Andreessen Horowitz is a founding member of the, remind me the right way to say it, the consortium.
The Libra Consortium, yes.
The Libra Consortium. So is Coinbase. Why? Well, let me start there.
Sure, and I would like to also comment on Patrick's view on security tokens, as Coinbase also believes that the security tokens are a future wonderful item that will come to market. We think that there's supply, we think there's infrastructure, and we think there's demand, and we don't think all those pieces are yet at the table where we're going to see huge growth in this, but we think that the noise is there and the excitement's there, and so we're starting to see building blocks to really bring this to reality.
And Alicia's right, they are not, all the building blocks are not there on the table. Stay tuned next week.
And in fairness for a few of us in the room, and let me ask you something I didn't ask Patrick and should have.
Yes.
What is a security token?
Oh, well, a security token is a security, so a registered security, traditional security, but in a tokenized form. And Patrick could.
And this gets to the issue that Katie and I were discussing, that because it's a registered security, it's also a regulated security.
Absolutely.
Okay, so please, so continue.
So transitioning to Libra now. We got involved with Libra for the same reason that we have Coinbase, is we believe there's a future of an open financial system for billions of people on a global basis. And Libra's ambitions are very similar, is to open up financial access through their coin. So we view this as an opportunity to generate awareness. I think by the level of discussion we've all had over the last 48 hours, it is definitely raising awareness and a lot of interest, which we think is net positive to the industry. I think it also is going to show a lot of interest on behalf of global regulators that could then help bring regulatory clarity to us that we've all been seeking and lacking. So I think that this was a project that Coinbase felt was very important for bringing more people and more interest to an asset class that we think has huge potential.
Why? First of all, there are no banks so far in the consortium. Do you expect that there will be?
Impossible to say. I have no independent knowledge. It's possible.
And you heard Brad say a moment ago that it's been that the announcement alone made for a good week for Ripple because of inbound communication. Has there been any impact on Coinbase and on your exchange because of this?
Our products are very different than Ripple, and so it hasn't had a direct impact on Coinbase's business. I would say that it has, again, the value of huge awareness and more people looking at all of these products and services offered in this space, but not a direct comparison to Ripple.
And a similar version of something I asked Katie last night. What was the mood earlier this year in Coinbase when the value of Bitcoin had gone down by so much? I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that trading activity also would have declined considerably during that time.
Sure. There's obviously morale that occurs when you have cycles, and I came from a hedge fund environment, and I would say the same morale issues occurred in the hedge fund environment that I was in when you had markets up and markets down. So that is universal across volatile asset classes. That being said, what Coinbase was continually focused on through Q1 and continues to be is these new developments that we're seeing on the spheres of the ecosystem. And so despite price being down, we've never seen more engineering talent going to these net new projects and to development of apps within cryptocurrency, that generated a lot of excitement and a positive morale boost to combat the price. We believe we're going to continue to go through these cycles, and every cycle that you see, price is up at the trough. So if you track the troughs over periods of time, you see this long-going trajectory of growth. However, no denying it, this is a volatile asset class.
Patrick, you told me that you haven't had time to pay much attention to the Facebook announcement. Given your enthusiasm for the field, I would have thought you would have been very enthusiastic about this. And so
no,
I know you're busy, yeah, but what do you think about Facebook doing this in particular versus others that might have?
It's great. We've gone from an $800,000 a year diner to overstock to Facebook since January 2014. I think in December 2013, no one would have expected that kind of curve. And so I'm happy that they are, but I haven't studied Libra yet. It's an endorsement and a validation that, hey, the $200 million of shareholders' money that we put into getting into this field and building out a bunch of stuff, we picked a fertile place to be.
Earlier today, we had a young entrepreneur from Brex make a comment that all you really need to do to stay in business as an entrepreneur is raise enough venture capital and then spend that venture capital. One piece of advice for the room on being an entrepreneur, given your entrepreneurial history.
Okay, start off, do your models as carefully as you can, figure out how much capital you're going to need, and then cube it, and be prepared to kiss 5 to 10 years of your life. Assume you have no family life or no real emotional private life for 5 to 10 years. Good luck.
Words of wisdom from Patrick Byrne and Alesia Haas. Thank you so much.